So thank you. I think we are closing the poll. So we have an exciting 44% of our attendees today, board members, actually the at same level as senior women leaders at 44%. Then we have corporate leaders and CXO level at 26%. Other senior leaders, 11%, investors, 7%, and none of the above, 4%. So thank you very much. That's an interesting thing to find out. And we are welcoming everybody who is joining us today. So let me say warm welcome and drums, please, for the launch of the Divershefy Club. We are all very excited to have you with us today. It's a long-awaited and at the same time completely fresh and new. So my name is Silvia Smetana. I'm the co-founder of Divershefy. And Divershefy brings women into boardrooms and C-suites. I'm your host for today, as well as for the sessions that will follow the next few days. From Sunday, October 4th through Sunday, October 11th. We will have international speaker series, and we're very excited to have so many prominent speakers. I will say more about that towards the end of the session. So for today's session, we have the idea to give you a very big picture about what Divershefy is about, who we are, what we do, and why we do it. So this session will be recorded, just quickly to tell everybody. We are recording this session and we make it available for all participants who have registered. And it will be available until October 11th. Thereafter, all recordings of all sessions will be available for members of the Divershefy Club. If you want to become a member of the Divershefy Club, please go to www.divershefy.club. So let me get started with who we are. Today, we have with us a few of our 30 founding members of the Divershefy Club. Let me start with Madhu Avalur. He's the founder of Angrus Group. He's a co-founder of Divershefy, and he's the chair of the investor committee of the Divershefy Club. We also have with us Usha Shrikant. She is a board member in multiple companies and a veteran industry expert in the IT industry and the chair of Divershefy board think tank. We also have with us Revati Kasturi. She's the founder of Lux Job Skill Academy. She's board member in multiple listed companies and is advisory board member to Divershefy, as well as a founding member of the club. We also have with us Chris Peter, who is the CEO of PeopleSmart, and she is co-chairing the Corporate Council for Europe. Yashwant Anantaraj is a managing director of Sycon, and he's also the Divershefy Club chair of Corporate Council India. So thank you for all the speakers who are joining us today. So what we want to do right now is I'll give a very brief introduction more about what Divershefy is all about. And then we'll have each of the speakers give their part, and we'll have a 20-minute question and answer session at the end. So what we do at Divershefy. Divershefy, as I said, brings women into boardrooms and C-suites. And we created this global network, an online platform now, to actually enable this in the COVID times, obviously, to be an online platform, because before we had done events that were in-person events, and now we moved this to an online platform so we can expand it globally, and we can bring a lot more women and a lot more board members, investors, and corporate leaders together in order to increase the number of women in boardrooms and C-suites. And the question is, why do we do that? Well, that is something I want to tell you about as a creation story. So every company has their own creation story. So we also have a creation story, and it starts with actually 3 years back, Madhu Avalur and myself, together with Pavitra Jairam Rajiv, were sitting together and talking about the fact that there's so few women in boardrooms and C-suites. And is there something that we can actually do about it? Not just talk about it and not just acknowledge the fact, but actually do something about it. So 3 years back, we actually started to do some research. We talked with investors, corporate leaders, as well as board members, and we asked a lot of senior women leaders what they think and what everybody else was thinking would be the reasons for so few women in those positions. So what we found is there is a gap, and we actually felt there was a way that we can bridge that gap, and it has to do with the last mile connectivity. So it's like you get to a senior level position, an SVP, EVP level, and then actually there's maybe a gap to get actually into the boardroom or be a C-level executive. So that gap is what we are trying to fill with Divershefy. And the way we do it is actually something that we'll share today. So I have another poll I quickly want to do before we continue. One second, get to the second poll. So second poll is, what do you think are the 3 main reasons we have so few women leaders in top positions? Please give me your input for the next 30 seconds. While we're waiting, I wanted to tell you, we are very proud to have people from many, many different countries here today on this platform. We have registrations from more than 12 different countries, and we're very excited to have such a global audience. So gonna end the poll in a minute, in a second. 78% voted, 80%, okay, we're getting there. Okay, so let's get the results. So results, well, qualified but not visible enough. I'm very excited that this has such a high ratio because I fully agree with that. Then we have a lack of professional network at the top level, absolutely agree. Gender bias in the workplace, and then not enough women in the pipeline and not enough support from home. Great, so that is interesting because that actually matches exactly what we have found, which I'm very happy to share. So basically what we have found is that the 3 main reasons, the most important main reasons are the senior women experience gender bias in the workplace, so they are missed when promotions happen, even at very senior levels. They are outperforming their men colleagues and still they don't get promoted for reasons that are unclear. Second thing is women do not have the kind of high-level network that many senior men do. And that is historically grown and has to do with the fact that, say, 30 years back, when you think about IIT Madras or some alumni network, the amount of men relative to women 30 years back was 90 to 10 at best. So now 30 years later, you still have the results of that difference. So a lot of senior board members, CXO level and so on, are still majority male, as we know. You know, internationally, you talk about 20–25% of women in leadership positions, and that is partially historically grown, and we have to actively do something about this in order to change it. The third point is women leaders are not visible enough, and that is partially, I think, also something that women have to be more actively doing something about, and Divershefy will help that. We're actually going to create a speakers platform where we will promote women into panels, into different conferences, all kinds of ways in which women can be seen, publicly seen, and so they can build their own profile, which I think is an important part to getting more women into those top positions. So Divershefy is addressing all those three issues. So we are actually actively working to make a difference in all those three. And before I continue, my request is now for Madhu Avalor to share his experience of why we started this journey together and his excitement about what we're trying to do. So Madhu, please take it from here.
Thank you, Sylvia. Welcome, distinguished founding members of Divershefy Club, members of the club, and all the participants in the launch program tonight. I see it today, tonight is a celebration of equality, diversity, and leadership. I have been blessed to have taken the road less traveled right from the start of my professional life. I started my professional life straight out of college, and one of the kind of, as they call, oddballs, or I ended up starting my first company straight out of college in Israel, and I had a wonderful partner. Unfortunately, she is no more, but I started my professional life with my mentor and a partner who got me into the world of business and understanding psychology of human beings. And I also happened to be blessed and born into a family of 4 sisters. All of them led professional life by the time I was already 10, right? So it's almost like having 5 mothers. So I never felt any different working with women. I was always had seen success because there was always helping hand and empathetic way of approaching things, right? Because it's the creation. It's a natural creation instinct. And that's why people talk about the motherly instinct sometimes, right? Every woman has, and I tap into the Vedic instincts or Vedic traditions of what people talk about as Mahakali, Mahasaraswati, Mahalakshmi, right? Like people talk about the triad of the creation, the protection, and the destruction. All the 3 elements of nature we tap into. That's what I see it as kind of the strength of the woman. When the discussion came in terms of like, say, why can't we look at, or why there is not a fair representation of women in leadership roles and in the board level. I have worked in at least 6 or 7 countries by the time, having started my first company in Israel, lived in Costa Rica, and then ended up living in Singapore. Currently, I'm based in Dubai. And having invested in almost like literally 7 countries plus by the time I was 35, I always wanted to explore that. And when the topic came, then I said, why not we do something about it? And we went straight into trying to understand a bit deeper in terms of what's the real challenge, what we have to address. And that's how we got started. And I'm just see myself as a co-creator. All the credit goes to Sylvia, who was persistent in taking this up. And because of my prior occupations in many investments, and I was able to support wherever I can, but I think all the credit goes to Sylvia. Afterwards, all the founding members who started to come and help her. And I still remember when I took Sylvia and Pavitra, and then we met Revati Kasturi. I spoke to her almost 10, 12 years back by email. We just reached out to her, and then we said, hey, this is what we are trying to do. And we started to have those kind of involvement sessions. And as every company has its kind of a great moments, looking back, hindsight is perfect vision, right? When we started, we didn't realize that we'll be going to be here, but I'm thankful that we took that decision and we are here. So without much further ado, I say again, welcome, and thank you for taking all your valuable time and taking your support, giving your support and extending all the good wishes and support for this platform. And I'm wishing Divershefy a great success in not just as a club of bringing all the women leaders, but celebrating the success of women, celebrating the success of women leaders as just leadership. I like to see, we don't need to add women as a word, a prefix to leadership, right? Because ultimately it's leadership. Why should we talk about women leadership? It has to become leadership means it's fairly represented. So that's the vision, hope. And Sylvia, thank you very much, and great job so far, and all the best and many more successes in the days to come and the years to come and the decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhu. Thank you. We are glad we have so many founding members now who can carry the vision and mission of Divershefy with us together, because it's a big vision that we have. Maybe let me just quickly say what our vision is. Our vision is actually to create a world where we have fair representation of women leaders, and we create a different business culture from the top down, where that is the business culture that is more sustainable, more collaborative, more innovative, because we have a gender balance at the top leadership. And I think that will influence the way how the whole economy is run. So we are talking about a very big vision in terms of what we're trying to achieve. So thank you all, every founding member who is there and everybody who's with us today to celebrate the launch of this. And maybe in 10 years when we look back, we'll say this was the start of a new era, of a different way of doing business. So with that, I want to hand over now to Usha Shrikant. She's a founding member of the Divershefy Club, and she's a very senior woman leader. And she's also board member of multiple companies. So we ask Usha to share her experience and her passion about why we need more women in leadership. Usha, please.
Thank you, Sylvia. Women in leadership, and this is a question which has been there. I have seen women in leadership, and I've experienced it myself. I'm one of those people who started my life in IIT nearly 25 plus years ago. So I identify with it, and this opportunity came to me. I felt it was at the right time. I could do something about it, still in a position to change it. And I'm very happy I'm part of Divershefy. And as I would say, recently Ruth Ginsburg, she passed away, but she said something. Women belong in all places where decisions are made. It should be that women are exceptions. So as Madhu says, said a few minutes back, women should be there. I mean, we are part of it, part of the culture, we're part of the corporate, we're part of leadership everywhere. And women are perfectly aligned to be in these positions. They go through multiple roles in life. And this provides a strong foundation for a leader. And they have an ability to multitask and continue to keep a long-term focus. And again, I go back to what Madhu said, he had 4 sisters. And we all know the women, the decisions they pass, they're passed on to generations. We've heard, and it stays with multiple generations. So they are a part of a leadership program which is already inculcated in their daily life. So when I look at what I've seen in the last few years, industry has few and scattered women role models. I'm not saying they're not there, they're there. In this era of social media, some few leaders who are also supporting us, like Kiran Majumdar, Indra Nui, they are accessible. And it's because of the connectivity which we are experiencing today. And that was the reason I came to Divershefy, to understand what we can do. And today there is a successful platform in Divershefy, which connects folks across the world. As Sylvia mentioned, there are more than 12 plus countries which are participating today. And this helps in bringing the women in business, boards, and also policy makers into an integrated platform. And Divershefy is that platform to raise consciousness of this and sustain the pipeline. It trains, matches women with boards and CXO positions. It is there for senior leaders. It's there for all women to connect with each other. And it's a deep global network we have. All of us have brought our own network to the platform. And it's a network of senior leaders, entrepreneurs, and investors. This platform, it enables individuals who have joined today, corporates which have joined us today, who advocate, place, we board train, we create a strong network, events, development, and lastly, coaching. We coach people to get onto boards. And we have a age group which is getting ready to get onto boards. And we are here, they're continuously helping them out. We look at both startups and public boards. And as we see in COVID times, we've seen women leaders have emerged as the strongest people. We know the President and Prime Minister of New Zealand and Taiwan, they're women leaders. They have effectively managed the COVID. And from here, I would like to give it to Revati so that she can tell us how they've done it, what they've done, and how leadership, women leaders have actually played it out. So here to Revati. Thank you.
Thank you, Usha. Revati, please go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much, Usha. Thank you, Sylvia. I'm delighted to be here this evening. I know many of you are joining from different time zones, so thank you so much for taking the time off and making it convenient to attend this session. So we are all very excited. Like Usha was saying, currently the world is holding its breath and praying for some miraculous escape from this coronavirus outbreak. But in all of this, there's one thing which stands out. It's women leaders and their countries who've done so much better. Sometimes some people will say, hey, no, that's a very small country. New Zealand is too small. But you know, data is there. They've compared across with neighbors, geographies which are very similar. And if you deep dive into it, we find many things. So Germany's Angela Merkel, New Zealand's Jacinda, Denmark's Frederiksen, and Taiwan, Bangladesh, all of them have done better than their peers. So these leaders, they reacted quickly, decisively. They communicated well with their citizens. They reassured them. They consulted with scientists. They drew upon the energy and the talent of the scientists to make sure they took the right decisions. So they put public dashboards on the status and availability of hospitals, etc., etc. So it's not rocket science, what they did. It looks like, hey, everybody should have been doing that. But here we have examples of women who've done it and demonstrated their leadership and built confidence for all of us. Now let's switch gears. I'm sure all of you women who are attending this session are have had challenging, let's say, challenging experiences. They've grown up in a male-dominated environment. They have struggled, risen up the ranks, and everybody must have their share of stories on how they handled it and how they moved up. So I don't want to preach to the converted about whether women are competent or women have potential and women have leadership capabilities. You all know that. So when Sylvia was talking about what we at Divershefy are going to do, we have to do some things top down and we have to do some things bottom up. So how are we going to get women to claim their seat at the table on the board? How do we get women to claim their seat? If we look at it bottom up, there are plenty of things we have to do. Let's say each one of us is got a core competency. You may be a technical person, or you may be a finance person, or you may be an operations person. You may be an HR person. Now, if you want to be on a board, you have to, yes, surely you have to have some area which is your core strength, but you also must have an appreciation for how a company runs, how to read a balance sheet. You have to understand who are the investors, what are the concerns of the investors. You've got to understand how does the organization culture get built? What are the challenges in building that? So I think each one of us, regardless of the stream that we come from, need to acquire few more skills and need to hone those skills so that we can, with confidence, sit at the table and contribute to the deliberations that are required in any board meeting. So Divershefy aims to get women ready for that. It means that we need to understand the gap that we are having. We all come with certain competencies. We come with strengths, but there are certain areas which we know is not necessarily our strong point. We need to be able to, learn and become more confident in those areas. So that's number one. Second, you saw in the feedback when everybody asked, what is it? Why do you think women are not there in those board seats? Almost the largest number was about networking and having the right networks. And as Usha and Madhu and my own personal experience, let's say when you have a board position available, how do you go about it? Sometimes you may go to an executive search company, but you want to have people in your network to say, you know what? Hey, I know those 5 people there. Oh, that person is very good. What is the background we're looking for? Oh, we're looking for somebody with operational experience. Oh, we're looking for somebody with international experience. Oh, no. We need somebody who's very strong in HR. These are the conversations. And then for every board, you want to have a board which is, let us say, complete, which has skills that various board members complement each other. So having that network where you can call upon and say, yes, I think I know 1, 2, 3 people, 3 women who are the right fit, and let's have a conversation with them. That's very important. So if you want to build your networks, I think that's a very core component. And I saw from the registration list, we had 60 plus women who had registered who are already board members. And then there are others who are aspiring to be. So this network or this club of people who are already in board positions and those who aspire to be in board positions is very important, because that network will help you provide visibility for all you talented women. As one of those points mentioned, that is there enough visibility about that? Then there's mentorship. I think nowadays organizations put it as a mantra, right? In fact, I've seen some organizations where you start off, even at the entry level, they'll say, let's have a mentor for you. How to get you comfortable within the organization, to get used to the culture. So you may need a mentor to help you get there, to handle those conversations when board members are being selected. But you also need a mentor thereafter. And I know I reach out to some other women, friends of mine who are also on boards. And sometimes, you know, I didn't want to use the word. Okay, we'll sit and say, oh my God, how did you handle that? That was terrible. I didn't like that conversation. I felt that I wasn't being listened to. I wasn't being heard. How do I make sure that my point of view is being heard? In some boards, you'll find that, oh, they're very happy. The audit committee is discussing audit and audit and audit. And then when it comes to something, let's say on technology, on human resources, they'll say, oh, do we have the time? Is it necessary? Shall we move on? So it's important that you have the confidence, you develop your skills to be assertive and to say, yes, this is on the agenda. This is very important for the company. It needs to be discussed. So a mentor will help you there, will help you, let's say, move along those paths and find your way and give you the confidence that, you know, you are right. Please stay there. So I feel that training yourself, acquiring those skills which you feel you have a gap in, building those networks, getting mentors, all of this bottom up is what we have to do to get all of you women who are very, very accomplished in your own ways and who are now demanding a seat at the table of the board. I want to say that finally, one ingredient is very important, and that is passion. You should want to be on the board. You shouldn't say, oh, it's so much of a headache. You know, nowadays with corporate governance, sometimes you might have seen a lot of independent directors are resigning here and there because they're talking about, oh, we'll take you to court and this is a cognizable offense and this and that. So there's a lot of fear mongering also. But that's on the one hand, but the reality is, yes, it's a lot of responsibility. So you cannot take it lightly. It's not a, what do you say, a nice, pretty designation to be in. It's a lot of responsibility. So you should be passionate about it. You should want to do it. You should want to be able to share your expertise, give back, in a sense, what you have learned to these companies, to these organizations. It is also a great way of you being connected with the business world and understanding new areas of business. So you should be passionate about it. You need to invest in yourself to make this happen. So all in all, my message to you women out there is, don't be scared of taking this leap into directorship. Remember to build your networks, and women have been moving up the ladder steadily, and I have every confidence that all of you will soar and there will be no glass ceiling holding you back. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Revati. Before we move on to the next speaker, I just want to say we have some questions in the Q&A already, which is great. And I want to encourage everybody to put in the questions while this conversation is happening. But we will answer all of those questions after the main part is done. But please start putting them in. We will definitely review all of them. And we try to answer as many as possible. So I would like to ask Chris Peter now to start with her part. Chris Peter is the CEO of PeopleSmart, and she has many years that she's been working also with very large clients. So she has her own experience of that, and she will also talk a little bit about the individual membership of the Divershefy Club. So Chris, please take over.
Thank you very much, Sylvia, and thank you for all the energy, Sylvia, that you've put into this fantastic initiative, and it's wonderful to hear so much passion in the previous speakers, so Revati and Usha, and of course Madhu, and the story that you shared at the beginning, which I think serves as an inspiration for all of us and gives us hope, which I think in today's environment is certainly an emotion we all strive towards. So my name is Chris Petter. I'm connecting here from Paris, France, and I feel very privileged to be as part of such an international community. I'd like to really share 3 very simple messages, and I share these messages very consciously. I have 30 years of experience within the corporate environment with some of the biggest companies in the world, operating at board level, but also one of my passions working at the lower levels of the talent and women lower down in organizations and seeing how they grow and evolve. And some do make it to the top, but many don't that maybe should. And so I do have a passion in relation to that topic specifically. The first really important point for me is why invest time in Divershefy? why be part of the community? I think one of the things that I have observed over the years is the reluctance sometimes of women to take time to reflect. To take time to reflect. They often have very good reasons not to take the time to reflect on their own needs, on their own growth, on their own learning. And they're often associated by busyness, just being very busy doing things, often doing things for other people, not necessarily in relation to themselves. Women play many different roles in society. I think that's the same everywhere across the globe. And we have, as women, I think, a wonderful ability to keep ourselves very busy and juggle many things. And sometimes the one thing we forget is ourself, and we don't take that time to self-reflect. So one of the benefits, I believe, of being a woman leader as part of the Divershefy Club is taking that time to reflect on yourself, who you are, where you want to go, why you want to go there, what is your purpose, etc., etc. The second point, and Revati, you've already mentioned some of this already in relation to the networking opportunity, but the second point for me is really just being part of a thriving, encouraging, supportive community. Being part of a community, whether it's our local community where we go to the markets or we spend time with friends and family, or whether we're part of a truly global community, it gives a lot of positive energy. It helps us see things from a different perspective. It allows us to open our own minds to see that things can be done differently, or what I'm doing is actually what other people do. So for me, and I say this very consciously, again, the international community is a huge benefit when you are talking about topics like this, because it just opens up the positions that are available across the globe, as opposed to just something local for yourselves. And clearly that links very much to the topic of visibility. I saw some of the questions or the chats or the polls. One of the things women, again, don't often take the time to invest in is actually growing their own visibility, and very, very consciously making steps, putting stakes in the ground to raise their own visibility, and to actually stop being overly humble about who they are and what they can do. And my third and last point is really about the opportunity that Divershefy brings for learning and also inspiration. I'm a strong believer of energy, and I think that if you can take energy from others, if you can learn new skills, learn about expertise, about things that Revati, you just mentioned, you know, the importance of understanding how businesses operate. What does it mean when we talk about corporate governance? What is the market doing in certain industries? Those are all things that make us sort of more rounded in terms of our recruitability and our mobility. And I do think that there is a fantastic opportunity in terms of our learning as part of this community and this network. So those are my three key messages. I would like now to hand over to Yash, who will talk about the corporate membership. And my last word really on this sort of individual membership topic or subject is, don't keep this fantastic opportunity to yourselves. You know, share this, co-create the opportunity for colleagues, male and female colleagues that you have within your businesses, within your corporations, that can also truly benefit together. So over to you, Yash, for the next part of this.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. So before Yash comes on, I just want to say he's a managing director of SciCon and the president of the CEO Club in Bangalore, India. And he's also chair of the Corporate Council India for Divershefy Club. So thank you. Yash, please take over.
Good evening. I hope you guys can hear me. We did have some technical issues earlier. Good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed an honor to be amongst you today and a privilege to be able to contribute to this most essential cause. A little background of mine. I have studied in 2 continents and worked in 3. The reason I'm talking about it is I have worked in very diverse cultures, corporate cultures. I worked for a Japanese company and a hardcore US company. I have worked and served companies in the Middle East and here in India. Like communities, corporates have very distinct cultures and they are linked to the communities they service. So the cultures overtly are very, very different and diverse, but fundamentally the issues that we are talking about, we have all been talking about of gender diversity. If you drill down the issues, the fundamentals are same across the board. Doesn't matter which geography, doesn't matter which culture, which community. So fundamentals are, for me, same. Thank you, Sylvia, for this opportunity. I will spend 3-4 minutes on the fundamental issues. To start with the much cliched statement, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, absolutely true. There is no doubt about it. It's true in every word. We are different animals. It's an absolute truth. We, each of us, have our strengths and weaknesses. We look at the world differently. We treat relationships differently. We approach problems differently. And we weigh risks and opportunities very differently. One looks at always getting the best deal, while the other looks at getting the deals closed and moving on. It is this stark difference in the outlook and approach to life is what makes a gender diverse group most powerful and clearly desirable. It is a no-brainer that a team of divergent points of view can, in fact, tackle challenges more efficiently and more effectively. This applies to small teams, large teams, small companies, large corporations, doesn't matter. This applies to social groups as well as business houses. But sometimes being different, rather when it comes to women, most of the times, being different is equated to not being equal. This is completely irrational, but it's the bitter truth. Do men inherently have better leadership skills? Do they have better IQ or better EQ? Are men mentally stronger? Frankly, none of the above. Let's talk about what really matters. What corporations or businesses of any size need at the leadership level, either in the C-suites or in the boardrooms, and then see whether women can actually, in fact, provide them. Integrity, perseverance and focus, care and concern for the people who work with, organizations themselves, and the society at large. The leaders need to have uncluttered mind and focus on the business. They have to have the ability to carry teams together. They have to have the ability to stand strong in the face of adversity, like Usha talked about earlier. Understanding of the way of businesses are run and the statutory environment under which these businesses are run. They need to have the ability to take robust and hard decisions. And more importantly, like we saw in the COVID situation, most importantly, take decisions and not leave it. And finally, empathy, which kicks sympathy out of the window any day. These are the fundamental characters you need in a leader. We can go on listing out and we will not find a single character, critical or otherwise, which is lacking in women because they're women. If it is lacking, it's lacking in both genders. So ladies and gentlemen, it's established that corporations, big or small, will benefit from diversity. And in fact, there is no real reason for women to be less qualified than men for the leadership roles. In fact, historically, women have performed better in the face of adversity than men, since for most men, every situation is a war. That's why we have war rooms. And for women, even a war is a situation to deal with. Having established this, having understood this, the situation of extremely poor representation of women in business leadership roles is real and stark. There are overwhelming socio-cultural issues, of course, which create this situation globally, but we're not here to talk about socio-cultural issues at this moment. We will address other critical issues, the issues which are perceived barriers. Number one, there's a perceived non-availability of talented and qualified women in the industry. It's a myth, but it is the perception. Perceived gaps in the skill sets, real gaps in the skill sets, regulatory issues which make it harder for female family members in taking up business mantle, inherent hesitation of women in pursuing a path through a jungle created and populated by men. Some of these were mentioned by the earlier speakers too. Knowledge of business and regulatory environment, and less critical maybe, but to me critical, lack of number of role models. So the purpose of Divershefy is right in the middle of this. What do we do as Divershefy? We will lobby governments and we will lobby corporates. We will bring out storybooks, not fairy tales. We will bring out storybooks of impact of women on this world, including business houses, and hence provide role models. We will evaluate, identify gaps, and help fill gaps in skills, knowledge, perceived or real. We'll do whatever it takes to bridge the demand and supply chasm, which means we will help create demand from the corporate side, and we will help create the supply of women leaders to take on the key roles. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Team Divershefy, I urge each of you to join us. Also, encourage people and organizations around you to join us and make the business world more equitable, more diverse, and in the end, more responsible. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Yash. Very much appreciated. So before I will go to the question and answer session, I would like to take 5 more minutes, because right now we've created the bigger picture. Why are we doing this? What is the backdrop for what Divershefy is doing? But you probably want to know, so what are we concretely doing? What is it exactly that we're actually going to do in concrete steps? And that is what I want to tell you right now. So one of the special features of Divershefy Club is that women get the opportunity to directly engage with our action committees. Action committees are board think tank, a corporate council, and an investor committee. So women have the opportunity to actually speak to them, to actually engage with them and get feedback from them in order to create those kind of network relationships with them, but also to expose themselves and see where I'm actually at. Am I actually fit to be a board member right now? And if not, what do I need to learn? So that's one special feature of Divershefy Club. Second is we will actually have, starting in January 2021, we will provide a speakers platform. What that means is we will give the opportunity for women to find ways to speak at panels, at conferences, and so on. Then we will also provide a network of women by cities, by countries, by region, and also subject matter expert groups. So we bring together, for example, women who are experts in artificial intelligence to work together globally. And also potentially, there might be positions opening up in different parts of the planet. in the same area. So that is, I think bringing women together in these multiple ways is very important to grow the network. We will have very concrete sessions also for learning and training. And this will include, starting in November, we will have 3 fixed events per month. So on the first of each month, we will have a launch of a new feature of Divershefy Club. Plus, we will have a possibility to engage with the founding members of the club. This is an event that is free to all, and everybody can join, who is, like today, one of the senior women leaders, corporate leaders, board member, or investors. On the 10th of each month, we will have a masterclass, which is held only for members. So if you want to be participating in the masterclasses, you actually need to sign up as a member. On the 20th of each month, we will have a fireside chat and a panel discussion, the likes we have between 4th and 11th of October. In this case, they will be free for members, and they will be to be paid by the public. So we will have a calendar for the rest of the year and the beginning of next year that we will be publishing, who is going to be the speakers, what kind of master classes, and so on, by October 11th. So at the last day of this launch, we will give you the titles and the people who will be speaking in the first 6 months. So after the launch, we will also be offering our first masterclass, and this time for free for everybody who has attended the sessions. So since you are here today with us, you are already counting as such an attendee, and you will be able to sign up for free if you send us an email to info@divershefy.com, and you send us your name, a LinkedIn profile, WhatsApp number, and then we will send you a way to register for this free masterclass. The free masterclass will be on October 20th about emotional intelligence, which is one of the top 10 leadership skills, and it will be held by Stefan Moylan, which is a South African lady who has written books on this topic and is a very veteran speaker, and she is holding many workshops on this topic. So she will be doing our first masterclass, which is free for everybody who is attending the launch sessions. So now that you have an idea of what we concretely do, and you might want to consider joining the Divershefy Club as a member, I do have a few points that I want to ask. Are you interested in supporting other women? For the individual membership I'm talking now. If you're a woman, you should be interested in supporting other women. Are you serious about getting on boards or C-level position in the next 3 to 5 years? And are you willing to put in the time, energy, and a little bit of money and engage actively in the network? If you can say yes to all these things, then you're very welcome to join the Divershefy Club. If you are just looking to get to the next board seat fast and you don't really want to engage with other people, then the Divershefy Club is not the right thing. Then you might be better off going to an executive search company. They might be able to find your board position, but just to say it again, most board seats are not filled by executive search companies. They are filled by the chairperson, and they are looking in their network. The nomination committee is looking in their network. The CEOs are looking in their network, and investors are looking in their network. So what we are doing is Divershefy creates an ecosystem that will be a game changer, because we are actively expanding the network of those people, of the investors, of the board members, the CEOs, to include a lot more women. And that is how we are bringing more women into the boardrooms and C-suites. So this is, we think, is a much more sustainable way of increasing the numbers of women in boardrooms and C-suites. So as a company, if you want to join Divershefy, I also have some questions for you. Are you serious about having a diverse leadership at the top level? Do you already have women at top levels? Or if you don't have them yet, are you willing to bring them on in the next 3 to 5 years at the C-level and at the board level? If you want to support women leaders with a global high-level network of peers, You want to have them mentored. So you train them in master classes, give them speaking opportunities to increase the public profile. Then you should sign up as a corporate member on the Divershefy.club. Corporate members can also choose to be part of an action committee. The action committees are the board think, the corporate council, and the investor committee, and you can actively participate in creating a collective future that is more equal, sustainable, collaborative, and innovative, and meet some of the best women that can be candidates for you, for your organization, for your board. So I'm done with my part, and I hope this is inspiring all of you to consider joining the club. And now we are taking the next step, getting into our question and answer session. So let me have a quick look at what our questions are. So first question that I have, does a combination of corporate and entrepreneurial experience work for board positions? Or did I miss the bus by quitting the corporate climb? So that is a good question. I don't know who would like to answer this question. Revati, please go ahead.
Sure, sure. I think absolutely it's a positive. If you have had corporate experience and an entrepreneurial experience, that's very good. There are lots of insights that you would be able to provide.
Great, great. So the next question, is anybody else wanting to answer this question? No, okay. So they talk about the women director as part of the board being compulsory. The position need not be of independent director unless they're a top 1,000 company in the list. So as many companies are talking or taking only female family members and known members as board directors. Well, that's an interesting point that, especially in India, I think is a big issue. And I have seen that too, that these women often do not even attend the board meetings, which obviously is not what should happen, but it is what can happen. So Revati, do you also want to answer that question?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So, you know, yes, that's a fact. And that's a shame. You will find that, by the way, on the one hand, this is happening. On the other hand, one poor woman member you saw in Cholamandalam, she's been trying to get onto the board of the company after her father passed away. And they're all just fighting tooth and nail and not allowing her. So that's currently one of the, let's say, top stories doing the rounds in terms of board membership and denying women board membership. But it's a shame. There are several organizations which do lip service, or they just want to tick the box and say, okay, I have a woman member. But I'm sure that, you know, corporate governance and apart, while they might tick one box, it's not going very well with shareholders. Increasingly, shareholders are becoming more active now. And so it's a good thing. It's time they woke up. And people are raising questions. In some particular meetings, I saw they questioned about attendance. Why the directors have not attended 5 out of 6 meetings? Why should they be there? Correct? And so vocal stakeholders, corporate governance apart, all this is a wake-up call. So we can't, perhaps with whatever championing we do and advocacy we do within some of these institutions, things will change. But if there is a company which is not really interested in corporate governance and just wants to tick a few boxes, you can't prevent them from doing that. So let's look at companies who genuinely want a working, a functioning, a live board, right? Let's target those. And we can, of course, do some advocacy about not having these family members around at one level.
Great, thank you. So we have another question on, is there an offer here for us today for the membership? So what I can tell you in terms of the offer we are giving to the people who are attending these sessions is we're going to extend the pre-launch price offers until October 11th. So anybody signing up until October 11th will get the pre-launch prices. Even so we are launching today, but we'll keep that open until October 11th. So that's my offer to you today. Next question is, throw some light on the mandatory IICA certification for independent directors. Again, I guess Revati.
Yeah, so it is becoming mandatory, and you know, the day they announced it, I think COVID happened and there was a lockdown, so they all had to rejig the dates. But I think right now the dates are March 2021. So if you are already an independent director on some of the boards and you have not been a director for 10 years, then you have to go through the IICA and pass that. So I would definitely encourage all the aspiring board members and board members who've not yet done 10 years to sign up for that IICA. Some of the stuff is fairly trivial, but some of it will, you know, I think I found that some of the questions were very, let's say, textbookish, because they were going from a corporate governance point of view. So you will have to go through that too. So right now, I think the date is extended till March 2021. And there must be something on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, so just to clarify, this is specifically for the Indian audience. Obviously, US laws are different, and you know, we don't have anybody today who can talk to the US law per se. We will have a whole speaker series coming up that I will talk about in the end. Yeah, we will also have representatives from the US as well as Europe and Singapore and different, you know, places around the globe. So this was specifically what Revati said about for Indian board members. I don't know if Peter, if there's anything else that.
No, nothing else to add to what Revati said already.
So, so there's a question of how does one measure the impact or for Divershefy? How do we measure that? That's actually a very good question. So anybody is willing to answer that one?
I think, so it's Chris commenting. I think it's a very good question. We always like to measure things, don't we? I think a lot of it will be based on the stories that we create with the community. I think that's one. So there'll be a lot of very personal accounts and stories to share. So I think that's one form of measurement. I think there will be some, we will have some ability to pull together some KPIs for what we're trying to achieve. And we're obviously very open to suggestions that this community has, because we're, I'd like to think we're an open-minded and creative community building together. I think those would be my initial comments on measuring the value, but at the end of the day, I think some of the value that's created is not necessarily always measurable because it's so qualitative and so personal. So those would be my comments to that question.
Yeah, I think what we are really shooting for at Divershefy is a very big global change in terms of how we run economies. So that is maybe hard to measure, but we obviously, there's some measurements we can take, which is like how many women are we getting on boards? How many C-level people are we placing? These are very concrete numbers we can measure. How many members do we have? How many corporates are signing up? These are all things we can measure, but the impact we're talking about is much, much larger than that. We don't just want to, we're not just measuring ourselves by the numbers we achieve. We're actually measuring by the larger impact we're going to have on society. So there's a few questions that are not in the Q&A that are actually in the chats.
I think there's a second part to the question, Sylvia. She's asking about how much is the commitment from time of members. So perhaps you can elaborate on that.
So as I said, we have 3 standard sessions every month, but we also have specific groups. So I think the minimum requirement, I would say, is 4 to 6 hours a month. That is what I would expect women to bring in. So that is basically an hour a week, more or less. So that is what we would require you to definitely engage. And there's opportunities to do a lot more than that. But that is kind of where I would say, let's start it there, and then we'll take it forward. And you see how much you actually want to and can engage depending on your other commitments. But that is, I would say, the minimum requirement. So there is a question is, are we allowed to be part of a board of another company if we are working full-time employee? So Revati or, yeah.
So let me answer that. You have to take permission. So because if you're an employee of a company, there will be some restrictions. You cannot go to a competitive organization which is working in the same area. So there have been times when there is a process which is actually corporates do follow, and you have to request it. And usually your direct managers may not have it, but you have to go through a corporate HR. They have the rules and regulations, and you have to clear it. It is mandatory, and it's also the receiving board will ask you for a disclosure of all the other opportunities you have. So even if you're on a competitive board, you have to disclose it. So there is a process both here in India and in US. It's there.
Great, thank you, Usha. So the next question we have is, do you recommend or refer members to available board positions? Yes, absolutely, that's part of what we do. But I wanna say that if you are just coming in to try to get a board position as fast as possible, that's not the path we recommend. It's not what we want to do. We actually want to really work with the women to understand where they are, what their current situation is, and really make sure they are very highly qualified board members to join boards. So yes, we do refer them, and we will do that, and that is part of our mission as well as our KPIs, you can say. But we don't want this to be the only reason that you're joining. Another question is, it is not very difficult test, somebody said. I guess the conditions I put out. But how to move forward? Join Divershefy probably improve the probabilities. Yes, and you can join to improve the probabilities of your own placement, and you can join to help other women to also get there. I very much really want to emphasize that Divershefy Club is a community of women who support other women. I do say that multiple times because a man approached me in the beginning when we started Divershefy and said, some women are the greatest enemies of other women. And some do exist that really are putting other women down. That is true, they do exist. But at Divershefy, we want to prove that the number of women supporting other women is way bigger than the number of women who are not helping other women.
Well said, well said.
Yes, so that's why we are saying that the women who want to join the Divershefy Club really need to support other women. That is important to me personally. I know there's a lot of, just look at this community, look at the founding members we have, look how many people we have already who, men and women, who are supporting women. And that's the kind of culture we want to create at the Divershefy Club. I hope that answered that question. So, so women tend to be restricted to their past area of experience, while men are given opportunities in new existing areas where they have no experience based on past excellence in other areas. How do we give women such opportunities so that they can expand the breadth of their experience? Very good question. Who is willing to answer? Revati again? Okay. Yash, maybe
I will try. I will take a shot at that, but I'm sure others would like to add things. I think sometimes it's the signals you give out. Are you risk averse or are you jumping up for opportunities? So look inwards a bit. I would personally say that. Are you the one who's always looking for something new? Because people stand out like that. Every organization, which is a thriving organization, wants risk takers, wants people to try out new things. So you've got to first provide visibility that you are there and that you are available and you want to do new things. Because I think that's the first thing within the same organization. How Divershefy could help you? I think sometimes get out of your comfort zone. For example, she was talking about speaker opportunities. Let me tell you my approach. I'm in a book club, and I always take up some topic or a book which actually was very tough for me to actually read. Yeah, it'll be part of my to-read list, but it wouldn't have been read for various reasons because it might have been tough to go through. But I will take that up because then I know that since I have to present at the book club, I will go through it and I will make the notes and you'll push yourself. So you've got to get out of your comfort zone. It's nice to pick up a book and an author which you love and you can just, breeze through it easily. But it's difficult. So this is my take. It's the signals we give out. It's what we do. Chris, please feel free to add.
You can see me nodding in the background here. I think one of my observations, and it's not just at board level, it's any opportunity to expand in an area where a woman has no experience. Women, in my experience, are so much more reluctant about saying, I'll do it. I've never done it, but I know I can do it. And I think that, for me, differentiates between sometimes the attitude that men might have compared to women around their own abilities and their own capabilities. And I think there should be more women out there that just say, you know what, I've never done this. I'm not sure how it's done, but I'm going to learn and I'm going to be really good. I'm really, really proud about that in the process.
Right. So Yash, do you want to comment on this as well?
Yeah, Chris almost stole my words. When you're in school and colleges, you'll always see whenever a question is raised, you'll see girls raising their hands more than boys. Once you get into that work and as you grow, those hands keep staying down. And then that's one point. There is an internal reluctance for some reason. Second, this is a perceived barrier. These barriers will be there in every step. What barriers are there getting into that company will exist in moving horizontally or vertically. That's an unfortunate truth. Divershefy can definitely help in mentoring women who are desiring to move up or horizontal, vertical or horizontal. It can be worked. It is a barrier right now.
So just to what Yash was saying, there was a question, what did those strong women leaders have as a characteristic? They had actually the first quality, both of them, the ones I mentioned, have very strong ethics. They never compromised. And maybe because first women leaders in corporate world, they still don't compromise. Second is both of them took very high risk. And they were always risk takers. And thirdly, I've met Kiran so many times. She puts her foot down. She says she takes up from the DGP of police to anybody, she just tells them, she puts her foot down and she says, no, this has to happen. I want women to be there, safe. I don't have any issues. I mean, she talks about actually providing the solution to it, which men don't. And that solution is she's thinking like a woman and providing the solution. And I mean, she's reached that point. So I would tell people, look at these role models. That's why we call them role models. You have to take a risk. You don't compromise. And at the same time, you should also be able to put your foot down in difficult situations. That's my 2 cents. So.
Great, thank you. So we have planned to continue a little more longer than 9:30. I hope whoever can stay on, please stay on. We have more questions, and I also have some things I wanted to mention at the end of the session. So there's a question: will there be one-on-one mentoring opportunities and guidance toward choosing the right mentor? Yes, absolutely. We are planning to have a mentoring platform where women can choose their mentors. And we have 2 different levels. Actually, we have 3 different levels of membership. The pioneer level, which are big people like Kiran Mazumdar and Indra Nui, and very accomplished women in their fields. Then we have executive level, which is women who are currently in boardrooms and C-suites. And we have senior level membership, which is for women who aspire to be in those boardrooms and C-suites, who have at least 15 years of experience and 3 years senior leadership experience. And people can choose a mentor from the 1 level above. So if somebody is a senior member, they can choose a mentor from the executive level. And if somebody is executive level, they can choose a mentor in the pioneer level. You might not in the beginning have one for everybody right away, but over time, I'm pretty sure we can fill this quite fast. So we definitely want to mentor everybody in a one-on-one session, at least an hour a month, possibly 2 hours a month. That's the goal. How does one network in these times is another question. Well, this is how we do it. Zoom or Google Meet or other things like that. But yes, for some time, we will probably have to continue doing it this way. But we are planning on having chapters in different regions. We have already about 5 or 6 different places where people are ready and willing to take it on as a chapter head. But we will only launch that in 2021, probably in March or April, because we do want to wait out the COVID situation a little bit longer to see how it goes. But definitely we are planning on chapters and live engagement in person in 2021. So there's another question. Unconscious bias. The lesser I talk about it, the better. But this is something that women deal with at the workplace. How does Divershefy plan to address this in the corporate world as you grow and expand? As this requires a paradigm shift in the mental model of the traditional stereotypes in the corporate world. So there is an acknowledgement of the need of diversity. It often is a lip service or just another matrix to sign off something. Does Divershefy plan to address this as a white space through specific initiatives? This is a different form of development initiative for women you just explained. Okay, so, and Revati was nodding, so I thought maybe you want to take another shot at that.
Okay. No, I think it's a real problem. And yes, we should talk about it. It is not the top item on the agenda for Divershefy, transforming corporations, because it is part of Divershefy's objective long-term, because we know if there are more women leaders in the leadership and in the boards, there will be a culture change, and we can have transformation, real transformation in organizations. We believe in that, we are committed to that. But there are organizations which are now specifically working within the company itself, right? On building diversity in the teams, making sure that recruitment also follows the process where there is diversity, etc. So I think at those, there's lots of work to be done. And maybe all the members can draw inspiration and try their hand in their own organizations, taking up such initiatives. I think that most companies, like a couple of companies where I have been engaged with, quite a challenge. We will start a POSH initiative, or we will start a diversity initiative, and the women who are part of it will not be active members. Then it dies a natural death. So if you want to do something transformative in a particular company, you need from within, the team from within. Somebody coming from outside and just giving some talks is not going to help. You need to form groups of women within who can, on a sustained basis, take up short-term, medium-term, long-term activities and ideas and so on. So I think that right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Sylvia, that's not really the agenda, yes. Long-term, yes, but not short-term. Yes, go for it.
Yeah.
One of our mandate, Revati, is, like I said in my 5 minutes, creating the demand while we are creating the supply side, while we are working on the supply side and building that. Our mandate is to create the demand, or work on the demand side. So we will be sensitizing corporates. It's easier to work on the supply side. It's harder, obviously, to work on the demand side, but that's a mandate at least Sylvia has given me to work with the corporate, sensitize them on the need for this movement. Yes, it will be a slow, painful process, but it's a process we are committed to.
I think maybe one thing to clarify is what we are looking at is not necessarily to do the D&I training per se, but to sensitize the corporates in terms of why it's important to have women at the top leadership level. Not just to look at the pipeline issue, because many more companies are committed to having D&I training, POSH training, and this and that. But the truth is, if you don't have women in boardroom and C-suite, and you're doing a lot of POSH training and D&I training and all these things, if you don't actually walk your talk, if you say you want diversity, but you don't have it at the top level, then employees actually don't take it seriously. And they basically, I know I've talked with several women, they're telling me that there's ways that people find around the policies if they feel that the top is not really behind it. So you can mandate all kinds of reportees level, they'd have to be X% women reportees or whatever. People find ways around it. They hire interns and count them as their reportees women. So it's kind of crazy, but yes, we do need to work on this, and we need to do it from the top level. I really feel Divershefy's mandate is to change the business culture from the top. So in that regard, yes, we're doing it. We're not necessarily doing the D&I training or the lower level women's empowerment training, which maybe in the longer run we also will do. But for the first year or so, we will focus on really very top level. Do we have women in boardroom and C-suite? How can we get them there? How can we close that gap? Because that will influence the policy making and the culture in the company itself the most. And that's what our focus is on. Okay, let's take one last question before we end. While we get exposure to various topics, mentors, is there a standard test assessment framework to understand the gaps and strengths required to acquire a seat at the board table for recommending a candidate? If yes, will the coaching be aligned based on the gaps by individual? So we want to distinguish here between mentoring and coaching. So the mentoring is, as we all know, is a kind of a different kind of less, I wouldn't say committed, but less intense kind of relationship than a coaching. So Divershefy Club itself will not do the coaching of a person and go into like a real coaching relationship, but we will find you high-level coaches to do that. We will have quite a lot of consultants and coaches and trainers that are associated with Divershefy, who will be able to help you if you're seeking to have a 100-day C-level coach. You just entered the C-level and you need a coach for the next 100 days. That is a kind of different, intense kind of relationship you might want to have. We will facilitate that. We will bring you to a coach that can do that, but we won't offer it directly as part of the membership. I hope that kind of answers that question. Okay, so I hope we get most questions answered. And before I close, let me just say a few more words. We have a whole week of international speaker series ahead of us. So starting on Sunday, October 4th, we'll have a session every day at 8:30 p.m. Indian time, 8 a.m. In Pacific time, and 5 p.m. European time. So it's the same time like today. We have speakers from many different countries, so please do join us. For October 4th, we have a topic called Future Trends, Shake and Evolve Economy and Opportunity for Women. For October 5th, we have Women in Corporate Leadership and How to Succeed Your Way. For October 6th, we have Women in Corporate Leadership. So sorry, I just said that. Women in Corporate, so October 5th, Women on Corporate Boards. It's not just about the numbers. October 6th is the Women in Corporate Leadership, How to Succeed Your Way. October 7th, Gender Smart Investing, the role of investors to bring about gender equality. Very interesting topic. October 8th, the Gender Balanced Leadership, the role of HR. And in this session, there will be very specific and concrete things that corporates can do and that the speaker has actually implemented in different corporates, can do to actually bring about gender equality in the corporate culture and the leadership. October 9th is the influence of gender balanced leadership on corporate culture, which we have, Chris will be speaking there as well. On October 10th, we have Reaching Gender Balance. It is not your pipeline that's the problem, it's your leadership. So we have a very high level speaker, Aviva Wittenberg-Cox, who has done a lot of research on this, and she will present a lot of the findings and a lot of the issues that she has been working over the last, I think, 2 decades on. October 11th is Women in Funding, because there's a whole issue of there's not enough women in funding, and more research, for example, recently Goldman Sachs showed that actually women perform a lot better if you have them as fund managers. So these are all issues that are very high, very important in terms of how we can change the landscape and how we can bring more women into leadership positions. So please do join us the next few days. And I hope I see you there. Thank you very much to all our speakers today, Madhu, Usha, Chris, Revati, and Yash. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the participants who have been willing to stay on for so long. And good night to everybody in Asia. Good evening to everybody in Europe. And good morning to everybody in America.
Thank you.